Hello and welcome once again to an episode of Indiepocalypse Radio. I almost called it an issue, but issues are the other thing that I do. That's the zine. Those things are issues. These are episodes. But what is an episode and issue? It's all names for nothing but sequentially issued pieces of art. And I guess it doesn't really matter what you call what. I mean, we understand what episodes are called and what issues are called, so I guess anyway, language. It's a complex little beast. Oh, yeah, the live. Got to do the lives. I knew I always forget something. But anyway, I'm speaking of forgetting something. I've forgotten to introduce myself. But again, I'm Andrew. I'm the host of Indiepocalypse Radio, which is the radio show where we talk to game developers who are typically involved in Indiepocalypse. Thus, we put the two together. Sometimes there are others, but that's if I'm feeling myself and I just email random people and tell them to be on the show, or ask them to be on the show. But the first guest here who we have on the show, who you may know from issue 34 of Indiepocalypse Radio with Infinite Revolution, is Gwen Clark. Gwen, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well, thanks.
Perfect, perfect. I gotta ask you the head of the question,
Yeah,
the question that is the Indiepocalypse go to. How did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
um, I couldn't tell you who it was, but I think it was just someone like retweeting, signal boosting submissions for 34, and I
Okay.
was like, oh, this looks super cool. Might as well give it a shot.
Yeah, that is. That's it's the easiest way to just like that's what I
Yeah,
hope. I hope that people just see and go like it takes me 2 seconds to fill that. I might as well.
yeah, that was basically how it was for me. I was like, there's nothing to lose, and like I get paid up front. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy I did.
Yes. No. Happy you did as well. Now we've got this once again another unrelated to Indiepocalypse, but
Mhm.
before we get into that, tell me a little bit like what is Infinite Revolution?
Yeah, so Infinite Revolution is a tabletop RPG. It was made in about 40-ish days for a game jam originally. It is the first published RPG I've ever made. The uh, elevator pitch, I guess, is you are superpowered humans called revolvers. You defend the last saved solar system after humanity has, kind of scattered out across the stars from the seething forces of animate, ravenous entropy that are trying to swallow up the stars and, consume everything and snuff out all life forever. Um, Touchstones are, like Magical Girl and Toku Media and just like cool space combat stuff in general. And also just my love for like, really emotionally driven, kind of over the top uh, animation.
Yes, yes, yeah, like extreme
Mhm.
melodrama.
Yes,
Crank
yeah,
it, yeah.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah, we were. I was talking with a guest. I think just last week about the idea
Mhm.
of like you see. They were mentioning that you see a lot in tabletop design. This idea of like, I mean, it's codified to that you would call them touchstones, but the idea of a lot of tabletop design is influenced by not other tabletop games. It's influenced by kind of more abstract ideas or other media.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I think there's a couple reasons. I think for one, um, this is definitely a medium that is like extremely in its infancy, I would
Yeah.
say still. Um, it's older than video games, but doesn't have the like absolutely insane market reach and proliferation
Right, right. Unless you
that
are,
games do.
unless you have a game that
Yeah,
involves dungeons and
unless you're the game. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Well, and that's the other thing, right? Is because because like basically the only industry defining front runner is a single product that is designed to keep things as safe and reliable and predictable and within this uh specific specific profit expectation focused framework, like it's a lot harder to assimilate those inspirations from like other things in the medium. And
Right.
I think that's a shame because I think there's a ton of extremely cool stuff, like cool indie RPGs that you can take inspiration from. Um, but I think that's a lot of the reason why you have like, a lot of games that tend to go for more vibes or
Yeah.
more genre emulation or whatever.
Right. No, and we were speaking of that as a strength of the practice, in terms of like it's not
Hmm.
just video games can sometimes get mired down in people just making Zelda again for the 30th time,
Right.
and their inspirations being all other video games, as opposed to
Hmm.
the walk between my house and the convenience store.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think the indie scene has a bit of that too, where at least like you could find people who would say that that's an issue just because of the SRDs and the way that uh, open licensed engines and stuff can get used.
Yeah.
Um, but even so, I don't think that's like necessarily a negative. Like, is every like PBTA or Forged in the Dark game are all of them good? Like, no,
No.
but I think um yeah, I don't know. I think as really approachable and accessible frameworks for people to make their first thing that isn't, or like, experiment and make something that maybe isn't good but is interesting or cool. Um, I think they're really helpful. And also like people who know what they're doing can make a really like good and compelling game with like any framework, basically.
Right, right, and it's
Mhm.
a lot easier to get ideas out that you want to if you're maybe not the kind of person who wants to be like, how do I balance dice rolls,
Exactly, exactly. That's a huge, huge part, I
right,
think.
or card draw, or what
Mhm.
is my mechanic that the players engage with. It's easier to come with a pre-built mechanic and just like
Yeah. I
build
mean,
a setting around it.
yeah, I mean like Infinite Revolution uses an SRD. It's built on Lumen. It was made originally for the second Lumen SRD jam. And the only reason I got it done in time was because I did not have to like figure out, okay, what's my core resolution mechanic? How do I handle like dice and progression? And there's a bunch of stuff in it that is not like intrinsic to Lumen. I did kind of um, I chopped some stuff off. I like stuck some other stuff on. There's
Yeah.
there's a lot of aftermarket bits going on, but like having that original jumping off point was kind of invaluable, at least for making a complete game start to finish in like a month and a little bit.
Right. There's no need to fully
Mhm.
reinvent the RPG.
Exactly.
Every time you make one, you don't need to, because I mean, a lot of people like you're still gonna fall into dice and cards and other kind of randomized
Mhm.
mechanics are still very helpful
Definitely.
if you're opt to for that you know the dice as a player sort of idea.
Right.
But now did you play a lot of tabletop leading into like being like, hey, I want to try my hand at making one.
Oh yeah, no, like I think I would probably call RPGs like my primary hobby at this
Okay.
point. They're what I do for fun. Like a lot of the time I've been playing since I want to say like early high school. Um maybe a little before that. In various capacities, I've been going from, like um freeform RP on forums even before like any actual dice were involved. And
Right.
then um yeah, like friends pulled me into Pathfinder, and I did that for a while, and then sort of figured out that I didn't actually like the super like that style of super mathy game that much.
Yeah.
And yeah, then just from there sort of spiraled out into trying like a whole bunch of different indie stuff. And now I'm usually in um like 2 to 4 games a week, ideally. Um
That's quite a few.
yeah,
But yeah, no, it's I say it's quite a few as someone who does one a week, but that's still like
yeah,
even I assume even one a week for some people is a lot, but
yeah.
and is that with just like a myriad of different groups? I imagine.
Yeah, like there's some cross-pollination. Like I'm in like there's some games where I'm in with like my girlfriend and I play in like several of the same games together, but
Yeah,
um broadly, yeah, there's several different groups with a lot of different people, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for like getting to meet really, really cool people through the scene, and also like keep in touch with, other friends regularly.
yeah, because the I mean, granted, of course, there's a wealth and a growing definitely solo scene, but traditionally,
Mhm.
tabletop RPGs are multiplayer, and to playtest them, you traditionally require other people, so they kind of lend
It's true,
themselves
yeah.
they lend themselves to a community building and
Mhm.
or just meeting people because you can't spin up a game by yourself and play six. I mean,
Yeah,
I guess you could, but
you could, but yeah, no, I mean like case in point, like I wouldn't be here talking to you if not for RPGs, so I'm very happy for that.
yeah, no, it's a cool thing. I like to. I think uh, in from my outsider perspective, it seems I am primarily video game focused here,
Hmm.
but I like tabletop games a lot too, and I think also space is very cool. So I try to include at least a couple in everyone. I think
Yeah, definitely.
I've put like a cap of two just because in my casual anecdotal perspective, I'm like, oh, they got a little bit better
Mhm.
off, maybe, but I don't know.
Oh, as far as
Uh,
um,
like,
I think it depends. I don't know.
yeah,
I guess I fully admit I don't know what the prospects are um for
yeah.
the
I
indie
think,
like video game scene on itch. But my my instinct, I think, is that it's maybe easier to get a a certain level of um well, so backing up actually, I think
yeah,
I think the primary difference is that the indie tabletop community is fucking tiny,
right,
minuscule. We are a speck on a speck on a grain of sand in comparison to um indie games
right. It all
and
goes back
gaming in
to
general.
there's
Yeah.
one big
And
tabletop game in general.
yes, well, like even that whole industry, like in comparison to to non-analog games. And like that's really cool in some ways, because that means that like everybody knows everybody,
Yeah,
um, and it's a lot easier to network with people because like everyone is kind of on the same page. Um, it also means so in that regard, like it's easier to sort of get noticed, and get at least a little promotion just because like you're not competing in this enormous seething sea of a ton of other like indie games.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you know, we're really small, so
Right.
there's barely any. There's significantly less money just going around
Yes.
in
Yeah.
general. And also because of the nature of the hobby, you don't you don't quite get the same like, YouTuber makes a video of your game and it gets 15 million views, and
Yeah.
now holy shit, your game is like, yeah, your game pops off. Like there are shades of that, I think, that can happen, especially like now with like TikTok and like other like less traditional promotion strategies and stuff. But like, um, yeah, I think it's very different. Um, I
Yeah.
don't know if I could, yeah, I don't know if I could say it's like, materially better or not,
No, no,
but
I don't think they are.
yeah, but
Uh,
it's yeah, there's less competition, but also you're competing for, I don't know, I fucking hate phrasing it like that because
right,
like
right. I am
it's
I'm
disgusting.
similar in terms of like it's very strange to like
Mhm.
I named this thing Indiepocalypse because I think there's the idea that there are too many games is kind of silly.
Yeah,
uh,
I agree.
this scope of well, no, it's like everybody like no one's like competing strictly because like
Yeah,
you're competing if you're thinking about it abstractly of competing for someone's money, you're competing against another tabletop game as much as you are competing against a cup of coffee, you know.
yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
And it's like in this, even if I maybe there are people, but I think the number of people who are like, this is my tabletop game budget, you know,
Yeah. Mhm.
as opposed to I have all my money in a pile and I can only spend so much of it. There's I don't probably few of those people.
Yeah.
So it tends to lend itself to creating enemies where you ought to be creating I don't know peers.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But
And like that's sort of been like, I think, an adage that's gotten I've seen repeated around is like, there's like, um we're all like we're all going for the same like pile of scraps
yes,
essentially. So like you don't need to like uh be an ass about it and fight people. Like it's a passion industry for
right.
sure.
I
And
no continue. Sorry.
oh no, you're good. And yeah, I think that's like, I think it's unfortunate in some ways. I think people deserve to like make a sustainable living doing this without
Yeah.
having to like stretch themselves, like uh rice paper thin.
Right.
But
Right.
I do think it's given us a pretty unique sense of community.
Right. You don't need to be like I need to put out 10 new games a year in order to.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, if you want to make consistent money, you kind of do.
Right. Right.
But unfortunately, but yeah, if most people, I would say, in indie tabletop are hobbyists. Most of them have day jobs. And this is like a just something they do for the sake of it. There are definitely people who do it full time. Um, and everything that I have, uh, all accounts that I've seen of that is that it is technically possible, but insanely grueling
Yeah.
unless you get very lucky.
Right.
Um,
Right. You unless you hit on like just like a hit out of nowhere.
yeah, or like, unless if you're like Tuesday night games and you kickstart like 1.1 million or whatever for
Right.
Mothership, which
Right. Or
fully deserves, like shout out to them. Great
or
job. I love Mothership, but
or you land like a you land like a key license.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, like the Avatar RPG or whatever.
yeah, right. Where
Yeah.
it's like, you're like, okay, well, we snagged this license that just is gonna bring a million on its own just by
Hmm.
the name on it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know. You and I can't go knocking on Disney or Nickelodeon's door and
No,
come asking for Avatar licenses.
no.
Probably not, at
Yeah.
least.
And I think there's some animosity, I guess, from people who like I don't know. There's the idea that I've seen at least that once you crowdfund or like pop off past a certain point that you're now like you're less indie.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
and I guess I can understand being frustrated about the conditions that result in that, but I don't really understand being bitter about it.
Right. And I wonder how much of that comes from people are, understandably not fully
Mhm.
transparent about everything, all the money they have. So
That
it's someone can look
yes.
like a huge success, and they are like just scraping by.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like um yeah, margins on crowdfunding stuff is like uh not nearly as big as, as like the shiny number that you see makes it out to
Right.
be.
Right.
Um I know like for a lot of people who try to do it like do it full time, they're basically saying like uh one Kickstarter leaves enough left over for the next like the to live to make the
Yes.
next game for the next crowdfunding thing. And that like that's sort of what I meant is that to me personally feels like a deeply unsustainable way
Yeah.
to uh to make things. I think that would exhaust me.
Right.
And
Because it only takes the one to not succeed, and then it all
yep,
crumbles.
yep, basically.
But
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I think that's why there's been such a push recently for like just other ways of, making this more viable and making it more accessible for people, especially like, like creators in the global south who can't access like a lot of crowdfunding platforms, just period,
Right. Yes.
because of like yeah, shitty trade laws and stuff, which is, a massive impediment to getting RPGs that are like phenomenal and criminally underlooked, like out and accessible to more people.
Right, right. There's just, I mean, imagine just the barrier of requiring it to be in English. I'm sure,
Oh yeah, no, that too, absolutely.
there's so many. You take for granted payment ease of payment structures until you're, say, for instance, squirreling through 15 different weird payment services because you need to pay someone in Eastern Europe all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
and I'm like, how do I? What is this service, that service? I gotta find some way to pay somebody the money they need,
Right.
but because of just where they happen to live,
Hmm.
PayPal is like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
But before I've got some questions for you, Gwen. We've got questions here
Yeah, yeah.
from the chat, as because if you believe it, our segment here is actually wrapping up our time between you and
Oh,
I.
okay. Yeah, no, I've been talking for a bit.
No, it tends to go quickly, and that's
Hmm.
that's what you're here to do, is to talk.
Yeah.
I'm here every week. No one needs to hear from me again.
Mhm.
Um, got a question
Yeah.
from Mochi. Um, do you have a favorite Toho character?
Favorite talk? Oh man, this is catapulting me back to high school. I don't know if I like I like the knife one.
Okay.
Sakuya. There we
Okay, I was
go.
gonna say I was just
I
gonna
like
type
her.
in knife Toho because I
Yeah.
it is entirely possible that 2023 is the year I get into Toho
Oh yeah.
because if only for this person who is presumably going to be asking every week uh,
Every week.
what are guest favorite Toho characters. I'm like I don't know what they are. There's like a shrine
Yeah.
maiden and a maid.
Yeah, I like Sakuya a lot. I played so much of the I think it was the 10th one, Mountain of Faith, just because that was the most recent one that was available that I found a free download for at the time. Um, and I was really bad at it, but I had a lot of fun.
Well, perfect. That is
Mhm.
I am building my Toho knowledge 1 week at a time.
Yeah.
And we got a second question here, a second returning question, a regular question from Soul, which is, what is your favorite type of rock?
Favorite type of rock? Obsidian, probably.
Perfect. Any particular reason, or is just the vibe you appreciate the vibe?
Uh, I'm I'm a goth bitch at heart.
Okay.
I like how it looks. I like that it's sharp. I think the process under which it forms is pretty cool. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm. That was our questions. As
Okay.
Gwen, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you will stick around for the group segment.
Yeah, definitely. I have nowhere else to be. I'd love to be here.
Perfect. I am learning. I like the fact that the Toho Wiki has a tab that is called Fun Facts. I,
Yeah,
I think more wikis should have a thing that's just fun facts.
I think so too.
But that's it. Let me as soon as I find my there you are. I'll find where my foo bar is hiding. Otherwise, then we'll be back in like 2 minutes and 14 seconds with our next guest. Thank
All
you.
right.
Goodbye.
Yeah, thanks again. Bye.
Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Downtown Boys with 100% inheritance tax. We are here with a second guest who you may know also from issue 34 of Indiepocalypse with uh, where's my question? There it is. Quinn and Flynn. I was like for a second there I forgot which order they went in. Um, is it Stanwix Buster? Is the terminology the pronunciation of that?
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. I didn't know if I just plowed through it if it had spaces in it. So you had time to prep. You had time to prepare for the question, the great Indiepocalypse question, which is, hey, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
Yeah, ready for the gauntlet. So mine was a bit of a fun one. So I'm in Game Dev Galaxy, and I think they had a feature on here like a while ago.
Ah, yes, the Game Dev Galaxy to Indiepocalypse pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was actually before I joined it, but I joined that because I've been like making more games, trying to get like more involved in like community aspects of stuff. And then a couple of people there were talking about Indiepocalypse and wanting to submit a game for this edition. And then I was like, hey, what's this? And then I had it explained to me. So I was like, oh, cool. And then I was just like, I'm so used to it now because like I'm trying to get like a job in games. So I've just been like throwing out applications and just been like getting ghosted or getting nothing back. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll just throw something. Like probably nothing will come back.
Yeah.
And then like I got the email. I was like, oh shit, like, okay, this is happening. So that's how I got here.
Well, if it's any consolation, I cannot get a job in games. I've tried, and they and they told me no, self-publishing a consistently self-publishing an anthology for 3 years doesn't actually make you qualify for a producer role in games. Because
Ugh.
my mistake is I think that video game companies never actually put things out on time, so kind
Mm.
of kind of ruined my qualifications.
Yeah.
I should have said, "Oh, I make an anthology and I put one out every 3 months, even though I mean to put one out every month." They would have been
Yeah,
like,
it's always
"Welcome aboard."
consistently late.
Yeah, consistently late, off time. I don't treat people like crap enough. Maybe, whatever the whatever the issue is, but it's grueling, and I wish no one. Uh, I wish you the best of luck.
You.
But it seems I'm happy to not be in it.
Yeah, yeah. It was like I do say that, and well, there's also the thing of like with what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to get into games as well with narrative design writing.
Yeah.
That's at least what I've heard is that it's a narrow field to begin with, which is design, and then an even narrower field, which is specialized, which is narrative design.
Right.
And it's like you basically have to like try to squeeze your way into a mid role and try to like prove yourself. And like if there are any junior roles, they're usually filled by people who are like going sideways, or they're like
You're
filled
right.
in like 2 minutes, and it's like you just can't get them. So it really is just like a slog and just like proving like, hey, I can create game. Please give me money.
Yes, it really feels like, especially coming from narrative design, that because it's a less obvious technical role to fill, and
Mm,
that writing that is. It seems like it's also the kind of field that goes very easily towards people know, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, my friend's a narrative designer, and it's like it's harder to gauge prowess, I suppose.
Mm,
But that's an issue I think of writing overall, because it's not like um, you can tell if someone made a bad drawing when you look at it usually,
mm.
or bad
Yeah,
code because it doesn't work.
yeah. Yeah, no, like with writing, it's like you've got like you can't like judge how well someone like does a large like epic arc in like 2 minutes because that's
Right.
just not how that works. And it's like if you want to grab someone in like 2 minutes or whatever, is like the rest of it gonna be like there's just like so much like there. And it's like one of those where, like, well, I get it because like obviously like people are social. That's like how we got here.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like I wish like I didn't have to like put myself out there and do like so much like networking. And it's like I don't hate it as in like I love like meeting the people and talking with them and like working with them and doing all that. Like that's great, but it's like that it just feels like a little bit like skeevish that like there might be someone who's like far better than I am who just doesn't have the chance to like talk to people or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like it's like I'm willing to like play the game as far as it needs to take me, but at the same time I'm like, oh,
Right.
I
Right.
don't
You
like
recognize that
I
maybe
don't really like this.
someone who doesn't have like they don't live in the right region, or doesn't have the right invites to the right
Hmm.
clubs.
Yeah, like literally with Region because like I got my start with Limit Break, which is this mentorship scheme in the UK. Like literally like without Limit Break, I wouldn't have connected with my mentor Freya. I wouldn't have connected with like all of this. I still would have been like mostly like fumbling in the dark, like not really knowing like all these like cool like game engines and web stuff you can make stuff
Right.
with, and just sort of like desperately like throwing applications out and like not connecting to anyone and like knowing if like the stuff I'm doing is good. Because like one thing that I always found like the most difficult before I started to get like regular feedback from people was just having nothing. Because it's one thing to like get feedback and someone say that this is shit. It's like, okay, well, that's a bit of a knock on the ego, but like you can
Right.
improve from it. But if it's just nothing and you have no idea if it's good or not, like that's what really got to me for the longest time. And like now it's nice to have people liking or just hating my stuff, like
Right.
with
Right.
IF, which is very fun.
Yes, it's to have someone paying attention to it, because like yeah, drawing zero reaction is kind of like the worst reaction, because if you can't even get someone's ire, what can you get?
Mm, yeah.
You just made a piece of like nothing art. Which is, but speaking of art that is not nothing, tell me what is Quinn and Flynn?
Yeah, and finally talking about the game.
Yes.
So basically I this is gonna like a little bit of the story behind it, but basically I've just been messing around with a bunch of different engines because like I mentioned with my mentorship thing, Freya basically said to me, okay, here's Bitsy, here's a bunch of HTML engines, and they're all like quite restricted and narrow. Make something with these restrictions and they'll like be good to exercise your design muscles because like well you can write so just like learn how to like put that stuff into games. And then Quinn and Flynn was made in a Videotome, which was funny enough one of her engines actually.
Yeah,
And
and relatively new.
yeah. It's like came out like uh, June or something. Like, I think it literally like came out like a week or so before like or maybe like a couple of weeks or whatever. Very, very close to when I was like, hey, here's an idea I want to put into a game.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole like gimmick, so to say, around that is that it has non-blocking choices. So, um, not all Videotone games are like that, but with Quinn and Flynn especially, you could technically go through the entire game without making a single choice, and the choices like basically just like change slight bits in the scene, like maybe a few couple lines of dialogue, but like the story is pretty explicit and just like one thing, one ending.
Right.
So that was like basically like the whole idea around it. I just had this idea which I got from a Tumblr post, which I unfortunately get a lot of ideas from Tumblr posts, but
That's a great.
um
That's a great place. Hey, like I said in the first segment, anything that's not a video game is a great place to get an idea for a video game.
yeah, no. So I got that from like a prompt thing, and it was this whole thing of like a guy who uh, only goes after male detectives just for the homoerotic thrill of being hunted by a man because he was a thief. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
that's great. So I just went from that and ran with it, and it ended up like slightly different than what the post intended, but like that's kind of the point of prompts anyway. And yeah, and the whole thing was like, okay, I have this idea for a story that just has like one like consistent thing, and this whole thing with like non-blocking choices that like meshes quite well. So the two kind of just click together, and then the thing just developed off that. So that's how it came about.
Yeah, that non-blocking choice is surely a thing that I assume must exist before, but it was the first time I had encountered it, and it was like, huh, and it makes a lot of sense.
Mm. Yeah,
But
I think Freya mentioned that it was Lady Killer in a Bind, I think is where she got the idea for it in the engine. And then
yeah,
I was like, oh, this is really cool because it's like it basically puts like the choice back on the NPCs, like for them to advance the story.
right.
Because like especially with Quinn and Flynn, where like stuff will happen no matter what. It was a bit of a challenge to figure out like, okay, so we have these like choices, and if the player like doesn't do anything, how do I get like the rest of the game to like push you down that path anyway without it seeming like too obvious that it was doing that?
Right, and it kind of as you approach it, it's like how you would usually approach sort of like autopiloting through. Because I missed the first one, I missed on accident. I was like, oh wait a minute, I did not realize. Kind of like, but that puts you into the role of just like listening to the conversation and not
Mm,
interjecting yourself.
yeah.
I
Yeah, and
know.
it was quite fun as well because like it made me like realize like how like in most conversations like it's often like you just listening and then you jump in with a question and then you just like kind of steer it off. So
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be like a lot more difficult than it actually was, and then I was like writing it, I was like, oh, actually no, like this is changing like how I think about dialogue, which is always a fun one.
Right, and you saved yourself from making like 30 million branches into 15
Yeah,
endings,
yeah,
which is the benefit of being mentored, you know.
yeah. Oh no, like that one of the because there was like this one little thing I made in ink a while ago, and it really wasn't that great. Like I still have it up because like I guess like maybe people get joy out of it, but I'm not a big fan of it. And Freya looked at it and she was like, "Yeah, there's a lot of words in the actual ink file versus what you get out. Like maybe next time, like figure out like how you can reduce that." And I that's the thing that I like taken to heart. Like, okay, like what's like the minimum effort? Like not out of like, oh, I dislike doing this or I dislike writing because I adore writing. I could just like write forever, honestly. But from just in terms of like, okay, like I want to get like a game out in like a couple weeks, and
Yeah.
if I don't like narrow this down, I'll be spending the rest of my life just on these different branches. So,
Well, I think it's I think video game writers more than anything need editors to just slash
mm.
through 90% of the dialogue I see in games. I think you could use like just
Yeah.
you could trim so much of it. It's just kind of like it's just the way the medium flows because you don't have to fit into like a 22-minute chunk. You know,
Mm.
you're like, oh, we can just keep writing and we don't have. There's no like expectation of, or if anything, the expectation of length in games is to be longer,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the longer the better. So it prompts people to just leave all the text they write in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like a lot of when I'm like revising stuff, it is generally just like, okay, this whole like section just gets summed up by like a character just saying like one or two lines, and it's really just like cutting out and trying to figure out like, okay, like what's the minimum? And it's a fun one actually because I found like the more like games writing I do, where I approach it with that whole thing in mind of trying to cut things down and like what's like the minimum word efficiency I can do this with, it started to steep into like other stuff I do. Because now I'm
Yeah.
like looking at my old pros and it's like, my God, I was going on for like for ages. And like it's just like nothing. And it's not even
Right.
like I was going on because like, oh, I was having like fun with these like descriptions or whatever. It's like, no, this is just like nothing. And it just it's just fluff. So it has been it's been very, very wild, like looking back and being like, wow, like my whole approach to writing has like changed massively.
Yeah, that's talk about important skills. Realizing that you kind of hate your past work sometimes,
Mm.
truly the most important.
Yeah.
Along with hating your present and future work, it's the
Oh
importance
yeah.
of uh, self-loathing can work
Mm.
great for the right people.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
a person who is powered by it.
mm. It's that's always been like a weird one for me because I actually think I mentioned this in the post-mortem where or maybe I didn't. I can't remember. Um, but I always like approached my work with like a sense of like self-reputation, like, haha, this is like actually bad or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, as like a self-defense because I didn't want to admit that I was making good stuff. But then like
Right.
over
Yeah.
time, I was kind of just like, no, I actually like I do enjoy like doing this, and actually enjoy like reading back what I've written, and
Yeah.
like even though even like if I go down like a few months and then I read back on it, it's like, well, I've improved, but like I still like what I did, and like I had
Yeah.
to write that to get better. So it's like that's been like a massive relief of like actually like enjoying the stuff that I'm making, which like I really haven't had with any other medium,
Right. Right.
like stuff like art or
There's a
whatever.
balance between it's about finding that balance between disliking, or it's more that you as they say in a job interview, you see areas for improvement,
Yeah,
and you like, ah, well, this could have been better, or this spurs, like it's important that it motivates you, not to defeat you.
yeah,
When you're like, oh, well, this. And also, yeah, there is no greater pleasure than going back and reading your own work that you enjoy.
yeah, definitely.
Is you're like, oh, I'm funny sometimes, or that sort of thing. No, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I like the postmortems. There is that's like a relatively new thing that's been added to the thing, and also I liked the sort of abstract approach that people have also taken to postmortems.
Mm.
Yours
Yeah.
was the one, if I'm correct, that was like written. It was written as a screenshot of like a Word document,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
that was just it was just literally I just like took my Google Doc because I just do everything in Google Docs and I just copy
Right.
it over. And I was like, okay, instead of like actually formatting this, I'll just make it like this is it. This is just the post-mortem is just like this text document.
Yeah, and that was the same one where someone else did like a very, I believe it was Jessica Lay did a very abstract sort of almost poetry postmortem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was there was just like, hey, here's a Google document.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I want when I'm asking for people's postmortems. I want them to like take these different approaches. Oh, you both wrote postmortems. Yeah, right. Yeah, I like there's like these very like I talked to Gwen later who had also written a postmortem that it feels like would belong beautifully within the book itself. The book being her own game, but anyway, yeah, that was I forgot that was such a heavy postmortem issue, and this one has like zero spoilers for next week. Um, but anyway, um, now you were jumping at this question earlier, so I gotta ask you on air. Soul wants to know what type of rock is your favorite?
Oh, the I okay, if we expand this to include crystals, which I've just decided it now does.
I'll allow it.
Uh I've always quite like quartz, like just like regular like nice clear quartz. I don't know why. It's just like a nice little rock.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay,
really
no,
have
let's
anything
let's
more for that
let's
one, but
now let's stop joking around. Stan, what's your favorite Toho character? Do you have no? Sorry, no, that's not the question. Mochi's question is, do you have a favorite Toho character?
yeah,
Okay, that's it.
it's
Thank you, thank
Komachi.
you so much for answering it.
Yeah, it's a Komachi. For those not in the know,
That's
Komachi,
me.
including you, um, just her whole story and just her whole character is just like the absolute funniest thing to me. It's because one thing about Toho is that it's based like a lot of based on a lot of like Japanese myths or whatever, and then over time, Zone started to incorporate like Greek myth or whatever. Comanche is supposed to be like the Toho version of oh God, I forgot his name, but like the guy who ferries
Charon.
souls. That's the guy, yeah. Guy who ferries souls across the river for the dead. And her whole gimmick basically is that she's 7 foot tall, she's incredibly lazy, and she never stops talking. So basically, she basically like nearly causes like a spirit apocalypse because like she just refuses to get off her ass and actually do her job. And there's like in Gensokyo, like all these souls are like running around the like guys like we don't know what to do, like we can't die because the boat ferryman like just will not take us across. And the entire game is just trying to get her to do her job, and it's like I love her because that just is just so funny to me. Because so many like Toho bits are like, oh God, this person is like trying to like cause this like serious problem, or like someone's trying to like revive a sun god or whatever, and like Toho 9 is just like, no, Kamaji just doesn't want to get up. Like she just doesn't want to do her job at all. And like just from that, like instant favorite for me.
I'm getting increasingly fascinated by just like NPC Casey and I talked a lot about just or I was informed rather about just kind of like the nature of Toho, and it's kind of
Mm.
like its very weird collaborative nature, and
Yeah.
it's and how kind of like nothing else quite exists like it in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this very good report from the Toho fandom. A photo of Zune from from a convention. Parentheses probably. What a what a line on a thing. Anyway, this seems like it's people who like Toho are having a good time.
Oh yeah. It's yeah. I was saying that I haven't actually played the latest game yet, which is a terrible thing to admit. I'll get around to it eventually, but
Yeah. No, I'll allow it. Listen. You're talking to someone who hasn't played. Well, as someone who's not even a Toho novice, a Toho no knowledge. Where would what would you suggest?
so everyone always says start with 6 because that's the first Windows game. I don't recommend that because it's like it's good like from a nostalgia point of view, but like it's a bit clunky. It's the first Windows game. It was still like figuring out exactly what Toho wants to be. I would recommend either 7 or 8 as a starting point, and I think my personal favorite would either be 15, 10, or 8, I think. Yeah. But I'd recommend either 7 or 8 to start with, because that's where like Zone really like started to like hit his stride with what the games wanted to be and like the mechanics and like the core mechanics. So
Yeah.
either of those two I'd start with.
Okay. My I will. I I can't guarantee, dear listener, that I will play Toho in a week. But this is becoming sort of my 2023 ambition, perhaps, of getting into all sorts of weird stuff, finding time to kind of like I'm always looking to expand my horizons constantly. This is like my
Mm.
whole goal is that there was I mean as of this very moment to double back to the reason I call this thing Indiepocalypse is if they stopped making art right now, there was a full stop on all art. There would still be too much art in the world for any of us to experience in our entire lives.
Mm. Yeah.
But I like to mess around with stuff still. Oh,
I'm very much like similar with that, with always like wanting to find new stuff,
yeah,
which is terrible because like I'll start series and like, oh, new shiny thing, and then I'll like just drop it, and I have to like keep like a log of like, okay, no, I'm going to finish this, and then we can like reward self with new shiny thing.
Right.
But yeah.
There's so much, and I'm glad I'm free from the notion of fandom, because it means I can just
Mm.
enjoy things and don't have to enjoy one thing for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Uh, but anyway, late breaking news. I like 10 a lot. I very rarely read the chat, and then I read the Discord notifications even less, because I'm busy just having a conversation,
Yeah.
and occasionally focus on the tabs that I use to look up Toho or whatever else I need to look up. But speaking of things I need to look up, Stanley, would you believe I need to look up Fubar, because we've reached the end of our time here?
Oh wow. Oh
Yeah,
man, that really did go by quickly.
that's what I thought too. The second guest, I'm always like, is it the end? Did I calculate the time wrong? But I'm like, no, even if I gave a little extra time, because I'll be honest, I never pay attention to like when I come back from break. But even if I came back from break like very late, it's like still we're cresting 54 minutes at the moment,
Oh man.
which is definitely more than 40. Which means I would have been running my mouth for 14 minutes at the start, which I was not. So we'll be back with everyone. But in the meantime, thank you for being here.
Thanks to you as well.
Going to take a 2 and 30-second and then one other 8-second at the end there break. Goodbye. Hello, welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Swear In with Divine Mimosa. We're back with everyone's here. We're all here. We're talking about stuff, I guess. Hello, everyone. Stanley Gwen.
Hey.
Okay. What was I gonna
Yeah,
say?
a minute ago we were mentioning well, I was mentioning Prague because of course I am.
Yes. Oh, tell me about Prague. Tell me about like what.
Oh boy, that's a can of worms. It's basically just I really like progressive metal, and
Yeah.
I just never shut up about it. And everyone who's like, oh, like anyone who talks about music, I just walk in and like, hey, have you tried this like 12-minute song? You really should. It's great. And then it has like a horn and like a carnival section, and they're like, what the fuck is this? So it's great fun.
My very much my. I've said on the show before. My only recommendation of a concert I think people have to go to is Godspeed You Black Emperor, whether you've
Oh,
heard of them or
nice.
not.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
They're actually they're on my list of bands that I want to see. I don't know if they're going to come to the UK soon, but
I think if they were, they just did, because they were just on tour.
oof. All right. Well, I'll have to make sure I
Yeah.
catch them next time.
It is my only like guaranteed or recommended live experience, because it is a very different live experience.
Mm.
You can
I
feel
haven't
the
seen,
music in your bones.
yeah. Oh God, I actually had an experience very, very similar to that. There's this music festival, Arctangent, which is like basically just a big prog fest, but also has like adjacent stuff, so like has like post rock, post metal, some alternative stuff. But one of the headliners, which was a Cult of Luna, which I hadn't heard before, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll check these guys out, who I'm now very big fans of.
Yeah.
Just from the opening, they played the song called Cold Burn, which, if anyone listening just wants to listen to, literally just like the first horn in that song. It was like the loudest thing I had ever heard in my life, experiencing that live, and like I genuinely like felt it in my shoulders, and I was just like, holy shit, where am I?
Yeah.
And their whole show was very, very good. I recommend Cult of Luna a lot.
Okay. Well, I do my thing of I just add. Would you? What? Actually, no. You know what? If it looks like Bandcamp has really jumped the horn with you. I've got all these things saved already.
Nice.
So they must have had like an article on Bandcamp recently with a new album release, because I'm a noted Bandcamp sicko.
Oh God, same. No, I everything for me is I don't have like Spotify or anything, which is like both a good and a bad thing. Because like good, I don't care. Like I can just like go on my thing and then everything's just there and it's all the stuff that I like. The bad is like when it gets to like Spotify Wrapped, I can't see like okay, you looped like this song for like 400 hours. What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, right. No, I never post mine because people don't need to know. Um, you know, oh wow, you're in the 0.0001 percentile for Jeff Rosenstock because you listen to
Yeah,
Worry on repeat for 6 months straight.
yeah, yeah,
People don't need to know which Mountain Goats album I listened to the most this year.
yeah.
It might have been Bleed Out. I think Bleed Out rules,
Nice.
and it's new. But also Gwen, if you are here, this is a group chat, so feel free to
Yeah,
unmute. And
yeah.
yes, hello, welcome back.
Thank you.
We're just waxing poetically about progressive rock music, perhaps.
Yeah.
But
No, that's.
anyway, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. It's interesting that that's one of the genres that I had a really hard time, I think, like uh getting into or finding anything I liked in because I think I have pretty expansive musical taste.
Yeah,
But for a while it was uh that was sort of one of the carve outs. I felt like one of the things that I just wasn't for me. Um, but that's not as much the case now. But it's definitely still like, not a genre I have much like what's the word? I guess personal knowledge of.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is, and I think like once you've gone very in the deep end of
Hmm.
music, I would say you like. I think the important part to not become insufferable is to recognize that no, not everybody wants to listen to this.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I actually say, and this is specifically for like progressive metal people, but like, so you don't like go like completely off the deep end and just become a completely insufferable prick. You need to be obsessed with at least one like super cheesy power metal band. For me, that's Blind Guardian, but like I always say, like, okay, no, just get into like Dragon Force or something, and like just have that as your anchor to like be normal.
Right.
Because if you won't, you will just be like the most insufferable person whenever someone talks about music.
Yeah,
It's like
or
some
just
people like just it's fun music and people like fun. They don't need like a riff that goes on for like for 5 hours and that has like incredible technical skills behind it to enjoy it.
yeah, I very much recognize that I've been tempered in just in my personal life by people going, "Wow, your music is terrible." I'm like, I think it's good, but you have to learn from an early age that I think a lot about like the perfect example of um, like a classic review. I think I even talked about this last week of a classic revered album that, like, let's be honest, nobody wants to. Most people you know in your life never want to listen to. Then that's in the airplane over the sea,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is like, I mean, if I'm sure if you go to any website, it's like nothing but straight 10 out of 10s. But it's like
Yeah,
you're not putting
yeah.
that on at like a family gathering, expecting everyone to get into it.
Yeah, it's like anything. Oh God, I had like I had a big realization recently because like my two of my favorite albums of this year also right now are top two on Rate Your Music, and it's like, well, I've become the person that I hate. Like
Yeah,
I just have to live with this.
I see. I kind of I don't know. I'm very bad at like knowing. I'm usually very behind on what stuff is like comes out this year
Mm.
because I'm like all over the place usually, or like technically it's this weird compilation of Spanish disco came out this year maybe
Yeah.
from the 70s and 80s. So like, but that didn't come out this year. But what would you say is a good intro if someone's like, I'm scared of progressive music, but what does it sound like?
Ooh,
What is?
okay, so I'm also going this from progressive metal specifically
Yeah,
because that's like my zone. I'd say like okay, if you like cheesy like sci-fi stuff, but like you also like want something that's like goes a bit more off the rails with like instrumentation. Aerion, which is by Arjun Lucanson. The reason why I always recommend people to Aerion is that it's less of a band and it's more just like a project that Arjun has.
yeah,
And what he does is that he does like the instrumentation, and then he brings on a whole bunch of instrumentalists, whole bunch of vocalists, and all those vocalists are like also in other progressive metal bands. So like you can just like pick up any Arion album, enjoy like some like weird like cheesy sci-fi plot over like some genuinely like gorgeous instrumentation and everything. But then like if a specific vocalist like catches you and you're like, oh, like he sounds really good, or like I really like the way she like sung this part, then you can find like what band they came from, and that's at least what I did. I kind of just like spread out naturally through that.
yeah.
So that's why I always recommend Arian.
I just recently g- got into that idea of I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about someone else who was like the idea of hey, this person's basis is this person, so I went to go see what this
Mm,
person was doing, and this person's this was that, and I was like, I played it during the intro song. It was a Jeff Parker song, and I was like,
nice.
this rules. And then I found like Jeff Parker is also part of Chicago Underground Trio,
Mm,
and I really liked a by Chicago Underground Duo album, I believe, is what I've played like almost its entirety on the show because I really like it.
nice.
But this idea of you know following artists, like unless you are like looking at the biggest bands in the world, usually
Mm.
like those like especially indie bands, they trade a lot. Musicians trade around a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And like with prog metal especially, um it's one of those where like it's big enough where it attracts like people who are like genuinely like incredibly talented, but it's still small enough where like it's not at the mainstream point where people are just getting into it just because like to make money, because
Yeah.
you can't make money. And it's like when like the pandemic hit, like everyone like went back to their like old day jobs. Like like I think it was the band Haken. Yeah, it was Ross Jennings, the vocalist. He actually had to go back and do like his photography bit for a while until the pandemic staved over because like he just couldn't make money just solely off like Haken merch sales
Right.
when there was no
Right.
touring going around.
Yeah. There's people realizing that there's not a lot of money being made when you're
Mm.
not touring. It's really, I think that's always been largely understood. That is, it comes from merch sales are what makes a musician their money.
Oh yeah,
But that was
yeah,
really exacerbated by like, hey, when you can't tour and people like how do we make money anymore?
yeah. You know, like every like musician friend I've had, they've just been like, no, yeah, just like torrent my music, and if I like do a tour, like just go to that tour, and
Yeah.
that's how you like pay me back.
Right. Right. I took a peek at the Rate Your Music top. I looked at 22 and I'm like, what are the top 10 or top all overall? And there's three progressive albums in there, so I'm trying to get
Mm.
a vibe of what Rate Your Music is like, and I think I'm getting it.
Yeah. No, I think the top one, it's either Black Midi or Black Country New Road. They're new ones, which are
Yeah, both
unfortunately
of
both
those
my favorites right
those
now.
were one and two for
Yeah,
2022, and even Top All Time has
yeah,
three.
yeah. They're very look, Black Country New Road and Black Midi. They're becoming like they are the like the new hipster band, especially in the UK because we're having like a weird like post-punk revival, which they're part of, and
Yeah.
they're like starting to like influence a lot of people as well. But it's really good, and I don't know what else to say. Like I really love it, and I keep telling people to enjoy it. It's good.
Right. It's very I've never been on this site, so it's always very interesting to get a taste of
Mm.
like because I get a sense of what IMDb culture is by their top 10 or
Yeah,
top whatever, but now I'm kind of like I'm getting a taste of what the vibe of Rate Your Music is.
yeah,
And it's like
yeah. I think
I'm like remain in
I
light, yeah.
actually I think the top EP of all time is Godspeed You Black Emperor. Oh, the Slow Ride for Zero Canada. I'm 90% sure that that's the top EP of all time.
Um,
I think.
I don't know how to switch over to EP. Oh wait, I think I do. Maybe. Update chart by EPs. Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, and that's
So
actually how I found that. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. Then I just had like my mind blown. And I was like, okay, I have to listen to the rest of these guys.
yeah, they're cool guys. It's a cool band. I think um it's cool stuff. But yeah, anyway, music. I think it's cool. I think it's a universal thing. Um, I do like In the Core of the Crimson King a lot.
It's kind of
Um,
actually terrible. I've been terrible, but that's been on my list for absolutely forever. It's
it
actually like listened to properly. I
uh,
have so many things on my list.
it rules. The boldest statement in the world. In the
King
Core of the
Crimson is
Crimson
good.
King is good. Um, uh, I've nothing but bold takes here. Number one is OK Computer. I guess that's a good album. Anyway. Um, this isn't just going to be me looking at rate music and be like, technically, I would remain. I get why you say Remain in Light. I would usually probably listen to Stop Making Sense more often, but I prefer a lot of those takes on that album. Anyway, whatever. Video games, tabletop games.
Let's stop talking about music.
You caught me in a trap.
No, that's my trap as well. I just anyone mentions progressive metal and I'm just there. It's like,
Yeah.
hi, have you heard of? And then I'm gone.
Yeah.
It's cool to listen to.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Gwen, what have you tell me about music? What's your
Yeah,
go-to?
man, that's I bounce around. I have,
Yeah.
I think, like a big range of genres, and I tend to focus much more on like specific artists than I do any one particular like
Right.
yeah. So my um like some of my all-time favorites are K-Play for sure. Um kind of like I guess indie rock, pop punk. Um, I'm not totally sure how to describe what she does, but that seems like a pretty good starting point. I
Wait, sorry, who is
like
that?
K-Flay
Okay.
is the name. Um, yeah, she
Oh yes. Okay. Yes.
yeah started doing tours a while ago, and I think because of like friend of a friend stuff, her some of her early albums were produced by the frontman for the Prodigy and like Mike Shinoda and stuff. So there's a lot of like um really cool like electronic influence in there. Um I'm thinking I like it's fucking really obnoxiously difficult to like I said to like narrow down any specific thing because I tend to just um
Oh,
I tend to be like a huge magpie when it comes to music and just
right.
sort of pick out
Yeah.
little bits and pieces of like, oh, I like this album, oh, I like this. But yeah, I in general I like anything that has a really strong like personal emotional component
Yes.
or anything that does I think honestly like the biggest uniting thread is I like anything that does something really interesting like sonically. I like songs that play with like texture and harmony and just have interesting like interesting noises or interesting instrumentation or whatever. I was like pretty into music theory as a kid and kind of wanted to like do that for a bit. So it's that informs a lot of like the stuff I like. There's some like more mathy bands that I'm into, and then I also do just like um a lot of newer, like more more aggro and experimental pop. Um, but yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there is I I don't begrudge trying to like nail down genres of music, which is
Mhm.
a nigh impossible task.
Yeah.
I think I put on a shuffle recently. I very rarely put on like shuffles or like the Spotify playlist because as a full album type of guy, it it
Mm.
it's clearly their algorithms are not built for that.
Right.
So you get like they're like we made a playlist for you. It's the three albums you've been listening to a lot recently.
Just out of order.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just like
Right.
It's like, what happened to the transitions? That was the whole point.
my mind was so thrown off by like uh just like so like in the recent one in the playlist I mentioned this because it was like I think there was like I think the band was called Click, Click as in like the club style with the QUE. I think it was like kind of like weird jazz emo or something. I don't know, but
That sounds like potentially my jam.
yeah, it was. I tried to think of whether the song was called Click or the band was called Click. I think the band might have been called Click because I am getting a hit for a band called Click, uh,
Hmm.
with their genres are Midwest emo and emo rock or
Mm.
indie rock rather. But uh, but the playlist had it was the aforementioned Worry by Jeff Rosenstock. It was a lot of I don't know what was the other one. Radio Maria's Look Now Look Again and the ever classic The Monitor by Tyson Dronicus. All of which like are I mean Worry is kind of like an A side and a B side basically. They're just like two medleys more or less, and The Monitor is like a concept album, and even what's it called? Look Now Look Again. They all blend into each other, so it was a lot of like false starts or false ends listening to those because like no, that's not the next song, and then and I'm going to say I'm very proud of myself personally for getting the name of that album correctly because I am traditionally very confused for the longest time. Look now, look again. Don't look back. The, the like the Bob Dylan movie, and then now see I'm doing it, or I can't think of it. It's what's the Nicholas Refn movie where they go to like Milan or Venice. Uh, don't look now, I believe. Yes, don't look now. I'm not even gonna look it up. I'm gonna say confidently, don't look now. But I confuse those three constantly for no particular, just similarly enough, even though they're very different things. Anyway, anyway. Before we just kind of go down this particular rabbit hole for basically forever, um,
Yeah.
um, do any of you have any kind of like last things you wanted to ask each other or wanted to say or just had any kind of like pressing things like I need to get this out on the show?
Uh, the only thing that I really wanted to mention is that I am doing a sequel for Gwyn and Flynn, ETA unsure, because things keep popping up that I then want to do, and it's
Yeah,
like, okay, this will take like 2 minutes. I'd submitted stuff for that stupid fucking Goncharov jam, and I was like, oh, this will be funny, and
yeah.
then I was like, well, I need to put everything on hold, and then I keep seeing like, oh, this will be funny, or like, oh, this will be a quick thing, but it's
That's
coming eventually.
that's been very very funny to watch from a distance.
Oh God, no, no, because it started out on Tumblr, and
Yeah,
that's like where my main posting is. So I literally like saw it like the first few posts coming up, and then I saw one person I follow who was like basically like one of like the like big follows basically, and a lot of people retweet stuff at and reblog stuff that they post or whatever. Then they did a post about it, and I was like, oh, so this is like turning into a thing. And then like I blinked, and there was fan art, and then that was just like the catalyst.
Yes,
It was so funny to watch.
it's very interesting to see these kind of like screenshots of moments of like what do people think Martin Scorsese is?
No, no, nobody on Tumblr knew
Yeah,
what like his movies actually were. It was just like they just heard like homoerotic mafia and then just like went with that, like no care
right.
of like anything else.
Yeah, Tumblr. I've been told in the past that Tumblr actually, I think through extensive Columbo posting, did start getting into Cassavetes, which is is
Oh,
how much truth is there to that?
okay. I witnessed a lot of Columbo posting, even
Yeah,
though none of the people I follow actually care about Columbo. Cannot speak to anything else because I just saw like a big resurgence in Columbo posting and
yeah.
then it died off. If that like caused anything else, I'm not following anyone who like got swept up in it,
Oh
so I can't say.
man, I
Can't
got
say
it.
on that.
I was another guest swore to me under oath that 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 Tumblr was in fact getting into Mikey and Nikki and like other Cassavetes films and stuff
Hmm.
because or just like other like Peter Falk work,
Yeah.
but
Y-
it's
You know,
all
I
uh, hearsay.
yeah, that is like the thing because like you have like the main like sort of stream, so to say, that like post that like everyone sees, but
Yeah,
then because you can curate Tumblr so heavily, and like you generally like get like a little circle of mutuals and you all reblog stuff of each other, then that becomes like quite insular. So you could have like an experience on Tumblr that is like wildly different from someone else, and like you also like occasionally see the same memes. So
perfect. I hope one day people uh, check out Scorsese's World Cinema Project. When do you think people will learn about Scorsese's World Cinema Project?
I
Well,
don't think they will. This is the thing
how
of that. And it's like
how many times will they dunk on him before they realize the World Cinema Project exists? Uh, anyway, anyway, if people could be persuaded by a mild Google search, the world would be much different.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Instead of just being like, this guy's a gatekeeper.
Oh man. The
Anyway,
internet's fun.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, but yes. If there's no pressing matters, then if that's all.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks
No,
for having me. It
yeah.
was very
Well,
cool.
in that case, we're going to go to the promo zone, and Stan, you kind of promoted stuff, but where can people find your stuff, and what should people be on the lookout for?
Yeah. So I'm on Itch, Tumblr. I do have Twitch. I do have Twitter and co-host as well. Stemworks Buster on everything. But I basically just use Twitter and co-host to just retweet things people ping me in and post project updates. Tumblr is where my unhinged posting goes if you want to see my opinions and music I'm listening to right now. And things I'm working on. I have a lot of things in mind there, but I can definitely say, like I say, I definitely will be doing a sequel to Quinn and Flynn. That's like solid. I have an idea for it. That should be very fun. There is something that I'm hoping to get, which is a bit more serious question mark,
Yeah.
which hopefully should be out on the all spooky mystical date, the winter solstice, so December 21st. If I get around to doing that, I really hope I do because it's something that I really like the idea. It was inspired by a specific book, and I really like what I'm doing with it. So hopefully that comes out. But yeah, those are the two things
Yeah.
that you hopefully should see from me in the future.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Might I recommend to find all those things easily, and just go to stanwix.co.uk. Sorry,
yeah,
stanwixbuster.co.
yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
people got their own websites, I love to promote when people have their own websites because just get out your own website.
Yeah, it's great fun. Learn HTML. And actually, that's the one thing I want to tell everyone listening to this.
Yeah.
Learn HTML. Make yourself a little web space. It's
Yeah,
great fun.
it's a lot easier than you think it is. You don't
Yeah.
listen. You don't need to actually learn CSS. HTML will get you everything you need to do. All you need is a web page that has text and links on it.
Yeah. Make yourself a NeoCities. That's I
Yeah.
still don't have one myself, but make yourself a NeoCities. Learn HTML.
No.
Good
Yeah.
night.
You don't need to. I'm not going to make one of myself because I have my own website.
Exactly.
Gwen, where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm on Twitter at Gwingle Move. That is not the best place to get updates on just the game because it's mostly posting and sometimes game updates.
Yeah.
Um, I'm on Itch as Gwency. That is a much better place to follow me if you want just stuff about Infinite Revolution. Speaking of which, there is going to be I am in the final stages of getting it polished up and adding a bunch of new spot art and just generally giving it some shine from its original game jam state, and
Yeah.
that's going to be happening soon. That's like a free update, obviously, for everybody who has the game.
Right.
So be on the lookout for that. Um, and yeah, that's the big like thing I've been plugging away at for a bit
Yeah.
now. I have some other stuff maybe later that I don't want to talk about, if only because there are like three different projects
Right.
competing for my attention, and I want to more concretely realize one before I go too much more into that. But yeah, uh, play Infinite Revolution. It's pretty cool. We have a Discord also, which is linked on my itch.
Yeah.
So if you want to group or want to ask me questions, that's where to do it. And yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
And for listeners, just to double check that, just to remove ambiguity, that's a Gwency with an IE at the end. You
Oh,
can,
yes, it is.
yes.
Yep.
I always, something I've learned doing this show is like, it doesn't hurt to just double check anything that could be
Hmm.
ambiguous.
Yep.
And you know what? Also, hey, keep an eye on Dicebreaker, you know, as a
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
yeah,
I
as a rising star.
I guess. Yeah. December 2nd. I'm gonna be chewing my nails until
Right.
that's when they announce the finalists or the winners at PAX.
That's I didn't even know they were doing that at PAX, but honestly,
Yeah. No, it's on stage at PAX Unplugged. I'm
that
not gonna
is
be there, obviously, but
right. but
um, I'm gonna be watching.
it is one of those things where it's just like it, an honor to be nominated because
Yeah.
your name's
No.
already on that list.
It was wild to like feel like I was like I was in the same the company of like some of the other people on that list. Everyone is doing like phenomenally cool work. And yeah, it's great.
I feel that way about like being on Indiepocalypse. It's like I've
Yeah, no,
suddenly
same.
I've suddenly gone from like, oh, I'm just doing this as like a as portfolio photo or like just stuff that I think is fun, and then suddenly like that realization that people are looking at my
Right.
work the same way that I look at
Yeah.
other people's work. It's like, oh
Yes.
no,
Oh, people care about this. Oh,
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
there's nothing more
Yeah.
exciting than a stranger telling you they care about your work.
yeah.
Yeah, that's like I don't know. I have nothing but the deepest respect for people who can create like who can create solely for themselves. I think that's incredibly powerful and cool. Uh, and I think that because that is not me. That is the opposite of me. I create to connect with other people
Yeah.
and to show like to yeah to hope that my work resonates with someone in the same way that or in a way in the same way that like my whatever emotions inspired me to make it resonate with me.
Yeah, no, and around these parts, I'm both a fan of wildly self-indulgent art that exists
Mhm.
for only its creator,
Yeah,
and also art that is clearly like I'm trying to convey a part of myself to somebody else.
yeah. See, that's the thing. The trick is to figure out how to make the self-indulgence
Connect to other.
how to make this also
Mm.
self-indulgence something that other people can enjoy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That definitely was a lot of what improv was for me. It was like I really like this art style and these vibes and this sort of thematic emotional scaffolding, and now it's everyone's problem.
Right, right. I can tell almost immediately often when art feels calculated and it feels like it is not what a person is passionate about. It's what they think an audience wants.
Yeah, and like yeah, no, I don't think there's any inherent shame in that, but I also think that doing it for yourself
Yeah,
is a lot of fun.
yeah. Listen, there's spaces for it, and this is uh,
This is one of them.
this
Yeah.
my space is for the real sicko stuff.
Hmm.
Who that I appreciate it. I gotta carve out that niche for people. But glad Stan and Gwen, glad to have you both on the show.
Yeah,
It's
Oh yeah.
glad to be here. Thank you.
glad to have you both
Yeah,
in the
same.
zine. And just I like that people make stuff, you know, and
Hmm.
Hell yeah.
whatever little way I can help it out in, I can. And to help, if you want to also help it out, hey, look at that segue.
Look at that.
You can go to indiepocalypse.com and buy Indiepocalypse. If you buy 34, these nice people here get money eventually. Um,
Yay.
it's like I love the idea of royalties. It seems like royalties rule.
Yeah.
I think if you make art, you should get royalties. It's just even if it's like you get a check for a couple cents every now and then, that seems nice. If you want to subscribe, like somebody did during this very show, to the Patreon, it's indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. Um, it's on sale right now, actually. As I mentioned earlier, indiepocalypse.com/sale. If you want to submit, if you want to be in these vaunted halls of
Yeah.
coming on the show,
Do it.
me kind of
Do it.
rambling towards you. I'm
Highly
joking.
recommend it.
Yes, yeah. It's like you heard it here. It takes like 2 seconds.
Exactly. No, it's super easy.
Yeah, if you're listening, you too want to be part of the Game Dev Galaxy 2 Indiepocalypse pipeline.
Yeah.
There's a few of them. There's that. There's the Strange Collab. There's the NYU Game Center, I believe. I feel like there's a few uh, scene or organizations to Indiepocalypse pipelines going
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
strong,
Definitely.
and I like it's. The world of independent art is both smaller and larger than you can possibly imagine,
Oh yeah.
and it's never too late to become a part of it.
Hmm.
Or to not, or to just like pop in for a second, collect $20 to $60, and then leave. You don't have to.
Yeah, that works too. It's
Yeah,
great.
I personally am not one who is like, hey, everyone, follow me, join my mailing list, join my discords. I'm going to engage with you nonstop. It's not the life for me. But so anyway, we've hit the rambling portion of the show, which is why I'm going to shut it down and give everyone one final thank you very much. One
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
one final
Oh yeah.
farewell, and one final transition to the outro song. Goodbye.
Ah, good night.
Bye.